Okay. Today, I want to answer a question. The economic theory of the China's rise, how China can get to the current stage. But obviously, it's not my answer. The answer comes from this guy, Lin Ngaifu. He is an economist, a former vice president of the World Bank. So the idea comes from him. From a historian medicine in 1820, China's total economy account for about 1/3 of the world's total economy at that time. But it declined sharply after that. When the socialist country was established in 1949, China's total economy only account for 4.2% of the world's total. Even by the time China opened up in 1978, so almost 30 years later, the Chinese economy only account for about 4.9% of the world. And therefore, looking at it, the world economy actually only exploded in Europe by 1500. In the world's perspective, exceptional. In 1300, it was the world's leading economy in terms of per capita income. It outperformed Europe in levels of technology, the incentive with which it used its natural resources, the capability of administrating a huge territory empire. By 1500, Western Europe overtaken China in per capita real income, technological, and scientific capacity. From the 1800s to the middle of the 20th century, Chinese performance actually declined in a world where economic progress everywhere else was substantial. This is a table from that book, Contours of the World Economy, from 1 to 2030. So at the beginning of the Common Era, the Chinese GDP is 450 and the euro is 550. China has been staying higher and higher and higher over the years. But about 1500 here, then it reversed. So there are 6 questions to be asked. Today we're looking at the first 3, and then next time we'll look at the other 3. The first question is, why the Industrial Revolution not originate in China? This is the starting point for the Chinese defeats in the competition in the West. The second, why did China develop so vigorously after 1978? Why not between 1949 and 1978 when it is under the same political party? Third, why can't China have the same level of economic performance before 1978? Fourth, during this time, other socialist and non-socialist countries had also tried to transform from a government-led planned economy to a market economy. However, the economies has collapsed, stagnated, and continues to crisis, while China has remained stable and strong. Why is there such a big difference in the economic performance of other countries in the same transition from a planned economy to a market economy? Fifth, just like every coin has 2 sides, everything has also 2 sides. What is the price China paid for the rapid economic growth? And the last question, Will it be possible for China to maintain rapid growth in the future and realize the revival of China that the Chinese intellects and Needham are concerned about? Needham referred to Joseph Needham. Okay, I will explain that a little bit later on. Okay, the first question, why did the Industrial Revolution not originate in China? For many people, the Industrial Revolution means the application of steam engines, mechanization of textile industry, and the general use of steel. However, this is not a good definition because if an economy has only these three innovations, it will only experience a substantial increase in productivity, but will not have sustained economic development. Let's look at some of the data first, okay? Before the 1800s, the average annual growth rate of national income in the Western countries was only 0.05%. That means it takes 1,400 years to double per capita income. Of course, the situation in other parts of the world is similar. After the 18th century, the annual growth rate of the national income has increased by nearly 20 times, from 0.05 to 1%, and the time taken to double per capita national income has been reduced from 1,400 years to 70 years. In the West, since the mid-19th century, the growth rate average has doubled again to 2%. Now the time to double is reduced to 35 years. This accelerated economic growth is not because of the application of the three new technologies, namely steam engines, steel, and so forth, but because of rapid changes in science and technology, which have brought rapid economic growth. Why suddenly the rate of technological innovation has increased and the speed of industrial upgrading has increased? I believe I means Lin Guihu, that the speed of technology innovation and the increase in the speed of industrial upgrading are the accents and the more important connotation of industrial revolution. So the whole premise that industrial revolution based on free innovation is wrong. It is based on the ability to innovate. Before the Industrial Revolution, all technological innovations in societies or civilization come from the experience of the farmers and the craftsmen. Since the middle of the 18th century, after the Industrial Revolution, technological innovation has mainly come from research and experimentation in the laboratory. So this is the change from the field level experience into formalized research. After the 19th century, technological innovation comes from experiments and even more from experiments guided by scientific theories. This paradigm shift has had a fundamental impact on China and the world. So basically what he is saying is that it is the scientific revolution which caused the change of an industrial revolution. The huge population means that compared with other countries, China has more farmers and artisans to accumulate experience and promote technological innovation and economic development in Chinese society. Not only China, but Asian civilizations such as Egypt and India all appear in the fertile areas of the Great River Basin. This is the reason why China was so advanced in the past, because there is a very large number of people in China, and just having a lot of people, that means there's a lot of innovations, and therefore its economy is advanced. However, when technological innovation is generally obtained through experimental methods, the large population losses its advantage, because in the laboratory, a scientist can make hundreds of thousands of experiments in a year, which may have required farmers or craftsmen to spend their entire lives to compete. However, the technological innovation revolution was the result of another revolution, the scientific revolution of the 15th and the 16th centuries. We still haven't answered question why China hasn't got the scientific revolution. Okay, so let's again look at the same book by Anders Madison. China was a pioneer in bureaucratic governance. In the 10th century, it was already administered by professionally trained public servants, recruited by examination on a meritocratic basis. The bureaucracy schooled in the Confucius classics was the main instrument for imposing social and political order in a unitary state over a large area. It had no challenge from a landed aristocracy, an established church, a judiciary, dissident intellects, or an urban bourgeoisie, and only rarely from the military. They use a written language common to all the China, and the official Confucian ideology was deeply ingrained in the education system. That means for most of the time, China is basing on Confucian ideology, and that is one of the main unifying force of China. And China is able to keep as a country, one country, is exactly because of this Confucian idea. China has a unique imperial examination system so that ordinary people can be promoted to the ruling class through the imperial examination. In traditional society, becoming an official is the most rewarding job. Therefore, obtaining fame and becoming an official is very attractive to the public. After the Song Dynasty, the imperial examination system required candidates to memorize the 4 books and the 5 classics of Confucianism, which lead to talented young people devoting themselves to study on Confucian classics to prepare for the imperial examination. They have no motivation to learn mathematics and controllable experiments. Therefore, China lacks talents who possess these 2 types of human capital and are full of curiosity at the same time. And the scientific revolution has not come into being because most of the talent are now diverted to Confucianism, whereas this is not the case in Europe. Europe do not have an imperial examination system. So yes, most people will be working hard in the field. They won't have spare time, but there will be a small group of people who has plenty of time in their hand, and they don't have to study Confucianism. They can study whatever they like, whatever curiosity bring them to, and they have the human capital as a small group of these people, Galileo, etc. And these people are pushing the scientific boundary forward. The more scientific boundary being pulled forward, the more ideas coming from science. Science can be adopted into technology to improve the society. Whereas in China, we don't have that group of people. In China, the people there are basically studying Confucianism, and that is their whole life. Curiosity is being killed. They don't have time to do experiments and so forth, and therefore there's no scientific revolution in China. Compared with China, the West does not implement the imperial examination system, and there are no social reasons that inhibit outstanding talents from learning mathematics and controllable experiments. Geniuses who are curious about natural phenomena use mathematics and controllable experiments to satisfy their curiosity about natural phenomena, which has given birth to the scientific revolution. Without a local scientific revolution, there will be no local industrial revolution, because industrial revolution depends very much on the understanding of natural phenomena. So why did China develop so vigorously after 1978? So that answers the first question, why scientific revolution doesn't happen in China, and therefore China is left behind by the West. And then after so many years, even after the formation of People's Republic of China in 1949, the Chinese still haven't developed vigorously, but 1978 changed all this. So the question is why? I have a theory myself, and there's a theory from Lin Gui Fu, and I will look at his theory first before I describe mine. Until the reform and opening in China, China was still poor and backward country. Why has China been able to develop so rapidly since 1978? In the 38 consecutive since the reform opening up, China has maintained an average annual GDP growth rate of 9.6%, and its trade growth rate has reached 14.8%. Such a high rate of growth and such a long duration of growth can be called a miracle and unprecedented in the history of human economy. Now, look at this graph. This graph is not linear vertically. It's 200 here, 400, 800, 1600. So it's doubling every time. So this is a logarithmic graph. And 1978 is here. China opened up. And then by 1990, the Shanghai stock market opened up. And by the year 2000, China joined WTO. And the way they go, okay, this is the curve. In between that time, China is still growing in the logarithmic scale. But you convert that into linear scale, this graph would look like almost horizontal here, and then suddenly rise up all the way down, up, because it is logarithmic. But you look at the logarithmically, yes, it is also developing, okay, in the same way. According to Lin, the China's rapid development is because of the advantage of the latecomers. What does it mean? Economic development means the continuous growth of per capita GDP and per capita income, and the continuous growth of per capita income depends on the continuous improvement of labor productivity. Okay, the key point here is the labor productivity. That means if we are doing the same thing, then we don't have productivity improvement. But if we change our method of doing things, then we do things better, and there is the labor productivity improvement. From the prospect of new structural economics, continuous technological innovation in existing industry and the emerging new and higher value industry are needed to relocate labor and various resources from low value added industry to high value added industry. Okay, that means as we have innovations coming on, then some of the labor force will be moved to the higher value labor force, but that depends on the innovation. Only after the Industrial Revolution can rapid technology innovation and industrial upgrading becomes possible. Again, this is the scientific revolution theory, because we have new way of doing things, and therefore we have new technology coming up, and therefore our productivity increase, and therefore the growth increase. What does technological innovation mean to developed countries? It means technological invention. What does industrial upgrading means? It also means invention of new industries. So when you do something new, it is difficult, okay? Because new invention by definition is new, is difficult.
Can get into my iPad. Huh?
Every day sweep the floor, then
Okay, let me get everybody on. Okay, never mind. The invention requires a large amount of capital investment and faces great risk. Empirical experience show that after the middle of the 19th century, the average annual GDP growth of high-income countries, including United Kingdoms, Western European countries, and North American countries, was about 3%. So when you want to start new inventions, new industries, the average rate is 3%, okay? But for developing countries, okay, that want to increase income, is only necessary to increase labor productivity, okay? How do you increase income, labor productivity? Okay, by learning from high-income countries. Learning is much cheaper than inventing, okay? When you are at the cutting edge, you move at about 3%. Because you are at cutting edge, you need to keep inventing new things. So your growth is about 3%. But when you are far behind, you want to catch up, you can learn. Learning is much easier, and therefore you can have much greater growth. So learn from high income that are better than their current technologies and enter mature industry with higher added value than their current industry. This kind of technology and industrial reference greatly reduces the cost and the risk of technological innovation and industrial upgrading. If developing countries can make full use of these advantages, they will develop faster than developed countries. So you need to learn, okay? If you can learn, you develop faster until you catch up to the developed countries. Then you proceed with about the same rate because we are at the cutting edge. Okay, look back at the history. After the Second World War, about 30 economies around the world knew how to take advantage of the latecomer advantage given by the technological industrial gap with developed countries, and realized an economy with an average growth rate of 7% or higher and lasting 25 years or longer. Okay, there are 30 economies which has been successful. After 1978, China became a member of these 13 economies. Therefore, based on the understanding of the Industrial Revolution, the answer to the second question is simple. The income gap between the developing countries and the high-income countries means a gap in technology and industry. If a developing country can make full use of the latecomer advantages in technological innovation and industrial upgrading, meaning learning from the cutting edge, given by this gap, it can develop rapidly. Okay, you need to learn, but learning also costs money. Okay, that is. So why can't China has the same level of economic performance before 1978? This is trying to answer that question. Well, we know that China lagging behind of the developed countries. There is a technological gap. And then learning to catch up is easy. easier than innovation. But still, why can't China do that before 1978? Or the rest of the world, basically, we know that only 30 countries able to do that. So what about the rest of the world? Okay. Since China was defeated in the Opium War, the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation has become the main theme of China. In 1949, with the founding of the People's Republic of China, China gained a political independence. The national ambition at that time was to catch up with the developed country as soon as possible. Well, yeah, we know that we are behind, so we want to catch up. The Chinese government strategy at that time was to surpass Britain and catch up with the United States. We have a Chinese phrase to describe that. This development orientation means that China wants to immediately build the kind of advanced capital-intensive industries that the United Kingdom and the United States had at that time. However, these advanced industries are protected by patents, and high patent fees must be paid if they want to introduce them. In fact, because these industries are related to national defense and security, even if they want to pay patent fees, developed countries will not release them. Therefore, if China wants to develop such an industry, it must invent it itself, thus giving up the advantage of latecomers. Yes, we see somebody already at that point. How can we learn that? Well, one way to learn that is get their patents, but unfortunately, they are not giving you the patents. Okay, let them be our teachers. Unfortunately, they don't want to be your teachers. Okay, so what can you do? Well, one way is, okay, we invent today, but invention is expensive. Invention costs a lot of money, and therefore China can't do that because at that time China is poor. So are many countries in the world. At that time, China was a poor agricultural country with an extreme shortage of capital and had no comparative advantage in capital-intensive industries. You don't have capital, and then you want to compete in a capital-intensive area. Of course, you don't have comparative advantage. The most important cost of a capital-intensive industry is capital. In a capital-scarce China, investment costs are much higher than in a capital-rich developed countries. Enterprises in these industries lack viability in an open and competitive market, and therefore in developing countries, it cannot be developed spontaneously by market forces. The government needs to directly mobilize and allocate resources and rely on market intervention and distortion to provide various protective subsidies to establish such an industry. Okay, China still make innovations like atomic bombs, but it is not by market force. It is by expensive government subsidies. However, government intervention in the market will inevitably lead to misallocation of various resources. Therefore, even if this development method allows China to test atomic bombs in the 1960s and launch artificial satellites in the 1970s, China's overall development efficiency is still very low. From 1969 to 1978, China's economy as a percentage of the world's total only increased from 4.2 to 4.9%. A slight improvement because China had no capital to compete in the capital-intensive industries. In 1978, China changed its development strategy and began to develop labor-intensive industry in line with its competitive advantages. Under the guidance, the government informed a competitive advantage, occupy the domestic and international markets, accumulate capital, and change its competitive advantages. The advantage of latecomers was used in the upgrade, so the economy developed quickly. So China start from the beginning. Okay, we don't have competitive advantages in capital intensive industry. Okay, let's do the industry which is not capital intensive, labor intensive. Okay, we have people. So we start with the labor intensive industry and then accumulate capital. So I'm foretelling that next time we'll answer the next three questions. So now that is from Lin Guihu. Now I will give my take on the question. Why China developed so quickly after 1978? Now the answer given by Lin is that China changes policy from the high end. At that time, high end means making steel, making competitive industry like the United States or the Britain, which is not a competitive advantage. And I think that is the problem with India at the moment. India is still stuck with the idea before 1978, the strategy in China. They want to compete in the high end and then forgot about their main competitive advantage, huge amount of labor. Okay. China's rise is make use of the large amount of labor force and then enter into the world market. It's better to compare India to China in order to explain this. So let's do that comparison. Both are large countries in terms of population. Okay, China is 1.4, India 1.3 billion people. So size-wise, population about the same. Condition rise. In 1978, India's per capita GDP is slightly higher than China, slightly higher. Okay, but today, Chinese per capita GDP is about 5 times of India, 4 to 5 times. Okay, so China experienced a large growth. Now, Chinese growth is by entering into labor-intensive industries. Indians' growth is by entering into high-end industry like software development. And today, India is still very strong in terms of, say, IT. Their call center, even our call center in Australia, a lot of them is in India. Okay, but unfortunately, that also means the participation in the world market is limited only to those who are able to speak English. You want to enter into software development, you need to have university level education. This is by definition limited to a small amount of people. The rest of the Indian people do not participate in the global industry. China is different. It's labor intensive, making t-shirts, making shoes, making textile products. Now, these products sell to everywhere. That means the workers participate in the global industry in that, but it doesn't need high education. A laborer, okay, a farmer coming from the West, going to the East Coast of China, is able to participate and making shoes or making textile, all this. That means the participation rate in global economy in China is much, much higher than the participation rate of the Indians. Yes, the few people who participate in the global industry from India occupy high positions, but the bulk of the people can't. Whereas in China, it takes the opposite direction. The bulk of the people participate in the low-end industry in the world. So this is the major difference, and that difference accumulate to capital accumulation, which large amount of people working hard. Therefore, the country started to accumulate capital. The second thing is the financial system. China has its national bank, the Bank of China. When a company in China deal with another company, for example, in America, okay, so they will sell their stuff in US dollars. The US company don't have the renminbi to pay Chinese anyway, so they pay with US dollars. The US dollars enter into China and then held there by the Bank of China. Bank of China print some money to pay for the Chinese company for their employees to work. Okay, that means the money printed by the Bank of China is based on the amount of current foreign money coming in. If I have $1, then I print 6 renminbi for the Chinese people. All this money coming in is held there by the Bank of China. Of course, your company need to buy resources from the rest of the world, but you are making money. So you so for example, have an income of $100 US dollars in a year. You won't buy $100 of resources. Otherwise, your company will not be making money. So you probably buy, let's say, $80 worth of resources. So you send some of your renminbi to the Bank of China to get the $80 US dollars to pay for your resources. But still, after that, 1 year later, the Bank of China accumulated $20 through your effort. We have millions of these little shops all over China making $10 or $20 per year. And all these profit of the companies, of course, they earn the profit because they got renminbi. But remember, the renminbi is printed. It's printed by the Bank of China. So at the hand of Bank of China, it accumulates this foreign money coming in, foreign, and then you keep on accumulating. So who owns Bank of China? Of course, the Chinese government. So the Chinese government is very rich. It has a lot of foreign money on its hand. What about the debts in China? Well, they're all printed money. Is my left hand printing money for my right hand to use? It doesn't matter. As long as the left hand is not chopped off from the body and they don't fight each other, it doesn't matter. So the government debts within China nominated in renminbi are all for accounting. Doesn't matter. It's just accounting purpose. Okay. And over the year, the trade surplus of all these Chinese government companies made, all accumulate in the Bank of China. And of course, the Bank of China now had the problem in hand. They have too many foreign monies. They need to invest these foreign monies in somewhere to make a profit. Where do you invest this money? Well, the best way to invest is US government debts, the US government bonds, but that is not secure. They are, again, the US print the money anyway, so they are not secure. So the best way is to convert these foreign government printed papers, okay, into something real. That's called one belt, one road. Invest in other countries' infrastructure. We will say, why don't you invest in China? Hey, if I want to invest in China, I don't have to use foreign reserve. I just print money. I can invest in China. Of course, when I print money to invest, I need some resources. But given I have this huge amount of trade surplus all the year, I can use some of that to buy the resources necessary. And then the rest of the thing, I can solve by printing renminbi. You don't need foreign reserve to fund your domestic infrastructure. Domestic infrastructure is funded by Bank of China printing, the printing press. So if you invest this money in China, it doesn't help. You have to invest this money outside of China. So we need a investment plan, a huge investment plan, because at the moment, the Chinese government had about $3 trillion in its foreign reserve. If you dump this $3 trillion into the global market immediately, it will make an economic collapse. No way, you can't do that. So you have to dump it slowly and slowly. 100 billion here, 20 billion here, 100 billion there. So you spread it out, a few hundred billion everywhere, and then eventually, hopefully, you will make up to $3 trillion. But it seems that there's no project in the world will cost $3 trillion. The most expensive one is about 300 billion. So China is now scratching its head. How can I spend $3 trillion? And that's why China is investing everywhere, because it had a big problem. The problem is it have too much foreign reserve. And a lot of people say, why don't China trade with other people in renminbi? The problem is people outside China do not have renminbi. How can you ask for something they don't have? So the next problem for China is try to get other people's some renminbi in their hands so that they can use renminbi to buy Chinese products. That is very difficult. That is very difficult. How can you give some people some renminbi without giving you free renminbi? Well, there's answer. The answer is copied from United States. Issue Chinese government bonds in renminbi. But that doesn't solve the problem. Now, when I issue my Chinese government bonds in renminbi, so you buy my Chinese bond in US dollars, I give you some renminbi to use, okay? The problem is I have more foreign money. Yes, I give you some renminbi to use. Okay, you give me some more money, your money, and then I give you renminbi. Then I have more your money. What can I do with your money? Chinese government is still scratching their head, thinking, how can I give people renminbi while I'm not getting your printed paper? Well, the way is import. Less Chinese people buy luxury items. Okay, luxury items. I bought it, say I get a Mercedes Benz, okay, Mercedes, okay, use Mercedes. Yeah, fine. You pay them with renminbi. Now, if they accept renminbi for your Mercedes, Chinese government will be happy. Okay, we have something coming in, not in paper, it's in the form of a car. And then I print some renminbi for you, and then you can use the renminbi for something else. So that's why China is encouraging the Chinese people to spend money. But unfortunately, Chinese people doesn't like spending money. They like saving. That is the problem. How can you encourage Chinese people to start spending? So when we say people in China is spending, no, I think the Chinese government actually will encourage people to start spending, because from a macroeconomic point of view, the problem with Chinese government is they have too much other people's printed paper. They need to convert that printed paper into something valuable, not just a paper. And that is the crux of the current international problem, I think. How can China keep on spending and get some renminbi in everybody's hand so that you can use renminbi to buy Chinese product instead of your printed money? And we want to give the renminbi to you with some valuable things that we can have. That is the major problem at the moment in China. I think the solution is China able to buy resources using renminbi. Then you will get renminbi into the world's hand, so that the world can use renminbi to buy Chinese products instead of their printed money. Okay, any question? No?
There's a lot of food for thought there, Albert.
Okay, you have 1 week to think about that and then ask me question next time. No? Okay, in that case, we will end this lesson a bit earlier and
It's
see you
next,
time.
Albert, it's next week public holiday. Next Tuesday is Melbourne Cup Day.
Okay, next week is public holiday. Then we will see you another week later.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.